take a seat. There's plenty of room. You all are joining us for our grad school panel from science and math majors. We'll wait another second until everyone comes in to join us. We're so excited to have you all. Thank you for joining us, taking time out of your day. All right, so we'll go ahead and start introducing ourselves. As you know, this is the session for grad school panel for science and math majors. So we're gonna have Cal State Fullerton alumni share their experiences with getting into graduate school, attending graduate school, some of their experience from when they're at Cal State Fullerton and some things that, helped them along the way. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. My name is Tatiana Pedroza. I'm the Assistant Dean for Student Affairs in the College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics at Cal State Fullerton. Shonda, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Shonda Shusaka. I am the career specialist for the college, and Tatiana and I wanted to do something. We wanted to do this in the spring. So so now that we're kind of getting comfortable doing these virtual workshops, we thought, why not do it this summer, since yes, I'm glad we're able to do this.
And we hope, if you're thinking about grad school or, professional school, that this could be, a really good guide for you, and you could see, yourself in our students and our alum. So one of the things we'll ask is to please keep yourself on mute during the workshop. So we'll have the panelists speak, and then if you have questions, you could use the chat and put in some questions in the chat, or you can save them for the end, and if we have time, you can maybe unmute yourself and then share your questions then. We are recording, so just know that we are recording any questions in this presentation, and we want to be able to have this copy for other students that weren't able to make it after. So thank you for letting us do that. So again, this is a panel of NSM students who got into different graduate schools in science and math. Shonda, do you want to go break down the layout for us?
Sure. Yeah, so the idea, we'll just do a little introduction before the workshop, and then we'll have basically a Q&A session, and we'll ask the questions to the panelists, and they'll take turns responding. And then at the end, we'll open it up for all of you who are attending if you want to ask any questions too.
So we'll go ahead and introduce the whole team. So Shauna and I are part of the NSM Student Success team. So that's basically me and Shonda over there on the left, but then we also have a retention specialist and our graduation specialist. So Brittany, Henry, and Sam Barroso, they're also, the specialists and advisors that specialize in general education advising, Cal State Fullerton policies, anything if you have questions about graduation, your first semester, second semester students. Brittany is your retention specialist. So as you're, maybe incoming to your first semester at Cal State Fullerton, if you're a freshman or sophomore, you'll be meeting with Brittany. If you're a junior or senior, you'll be meeting with Sam as your advisor. And then we have our graduate assistant, Anais Perez. So she oversees our Instagram. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, take out your phones. Our Instagram page is right there on the bottom, NSM_SSC. We usually share a lot of, important updates from the university, and then also workshops like this one, so students could attend. Again, we're all virtual right now. We know this is a new format for us, but we want to be able to share these experiences and these, workshops with you all, and be as interactive in building that community and keeping that going, right? I know we all miss McCarthy Hall. We all miss, being in the labs, being on campus, and this is our way to connect with you all. So we hope you could follow us, and then our website is there too. So if you want to screenshot this, save it for later, so you have our contact info there. Shonda, do you want to?
Yeah, so just to let you know, with my role as the career specialist, I also help with giving advice on graduate school. Because especially in our college, a lot of our students will go on to grad school, and that is part of your career journey. So just letting you know, you can always schedule individual appointments with me to talk about even how to the timeline on applying to grad school. I also help review personal statements for your grad school application. And then if you have interviews as part of your process to get into grad school, I also do practice interviews. And so just know that you just go to the Career Center website to make an appointment with me. Right now they're virtual through Zoom. The great thing too is we also help students in the Career Center 1 year after you graduate. So for those of you who take like a gap year between grad school, I help a lot of those students too with the whole application process for grad school. So just know that I'm a resource if you need me. The next slide, Tatiana. And then also just letting you know, the Career Center website does have a lot of online resources when it does come to grad school. So that's our website. And on that website, you'll find just a lot more information on like how to take tests for grad school, basically a lot of great resources on the personal statement, preparing for interviews. So that's just a great resource you could find online. And the next slide. Okay. Oh, and I also wanted to plug in that every fall we do a graduate school fair. And this fall, October 29th, we'll be doing one virtually. And so that will be a great chance for you to like talk to admission representatives from different schools all over the country, all over the world, actually. Sometimes we actually even get med schools from the Caribbean. So that's just a great chance for you to like actually ask your questions to the people that are actually running these programs. So just know that, save the date for that. We're still gonna have it, but it'll be virtual. And the next slide. This is just a little timeline if you're thinking about applying to grad school, some tips and things like that. So some people will start as early as junior year to start prepping for grad school. And so this is just a little guide of ideas to keeping you on track. So typically your junior year in spring would be the time you'd like be researching programs, thinking about applying to several programs so that we like recommend applying to at least 6 programs to maybe see, if you to increase your chances. You also want to look into taking any tests that are required for your graduate program, like say the GRE or things like that. So you'd want to register for those and study for them. You'd want to look into like funding and applying to scholarships, and then start even thinking about faculty and or bosses that you want to start asking for letters of recommendation. And then usually that summer of junior year, we'd recommend to start taking those like GRE, those exams you need, working on those on your application with the personal statement, and start requesting information from those schools you're applying to. Next slide. And then your senior year, some students will do all of that in their senior year too. So you don't have to do it all your junior year. So senior year in that fall, you're usually that's usually the fall is like your chance to finish up taking the GREs, any tests like that. You'd want to make sure you get your letters of recommendation sent out, you're getting your transcripts, basically all your requirements for grad school. And usually applications will be due at the end of fall or like around December, January time. And then in the spring, you kind of wait to hear back from the schools, and then you start to like make your decision on which school you want to go to. So some of this, it feels familiar, like getting into a school here or as a freshman or transferring. There's just, I guess that challenge of applying while you're a student is just making sure that you're like able to organize your time and get it all done in order to apply. Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and have everyone introduce themselves and what they're working into. This is just kind of like a broader layout, but they could go into more detail about what they're working on. But Chanel, do you want to go ahead and start us off?
Yeah, hi, I'm Chanel Lee. Like it says up there, I got my BA in pure mathematics and my MA in applied mathematics. I just graduated from the master's program this May, which is super exciting. And I'm going right into a PhD program at Rice University in computational and applied mathematics.
Thank you. Ernest, do you want to go next?
Hi, my name is Ernest. I finished my bachelor's degree at UC Riverside in neuroscience, and then did a chemistry master's at Cal State Fullerton, where I finished in 2017. And I'm currently in my 3rd year of a chemistry PhD program at UCLA.
Thank you. Isaac?
Hello, everyone. My name is, sorry, just that my mouse was far away from the mute. Hey, everyone. My name is Isaac Magallanes. I am currently a first-year PhD student in the Department of Evolutionary Biology here at the University of Chicago. But when I was in my bachelor's from about 2011 to 2017, I was an undergraduate at CSUF, where I worked on my bachelor's degree in geology. Afterwards, I went to the University of Florida, where I spent 2 years getting my master's in geology. And now I'm at the University of Chicago.
Thank you. Victor?
Hi all, I'm Victor Espinosa, and so I did my BS in chemistry at Cal State Fullerton. Um, I just graduated 2020, yay, the COVID class.
Yeah.
What's not up here is that I started off at community college, so I actually got an Associates of Science in Biology. And I am currently, I guess would be considered year zero. I'm gonna start my PhD at the University of Pittsburgh this upcoming fall, but I am actually here at Pittsburgh doing summer research, getting a little bit of a head start.
Awesome, thank you. And we want to acknowledge that you all are in different paths, right, of the grad school spectrum. So some of you that maybe haven't started your PhD programs, but you have experience with master's programs, or you're jumping into it right after undergrad, right? We want to hear about all of it. So we'll go ahead and start with the questions. And if you all in the audience have questions, please, jot them down, put them in the chat, and we'll get to them when we can. So we just did the introductions, so where you're attending and all of that, so great. And we want to go into your college experience. So the first question, and you all can maybe start, you don't have to answer all of them, but whatever ones that you feel are applicable to you. What were you involved in while you were at Cal State Fullerton? So like research clubs and work. And then the second part of that question is, what kind of experiences would you recommend current NSM students to participate in if they want to attend or go to grad school?
I can start it off. So while I was at Cal State Fullerton, especially in my master's program, I did a lot of research. It's important to do research. And then I was also a TA. So I got to teach my own class at the college level, which is great. So I have a year of experience teaching as well. I would say the most important thing to participate in is, like I said, research. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I would say if you're interested in doing research, just talk with a professor, and they might be able to point you in the right direction. Also, I know especially for math, there's a lot of summer programs that you can do, and they will give you a stipend. They'll fly you out to a different college where you can actually work on research. And so definitely take advantage of that.
Awesome. Thanks, Chanel. Anyone else?
I definitely think research is important when you're applying for grad school. They want to see that you've at least looked into it, have some experience in research, even if it's not necessarily what you're going into. If they see that you're interested in research, it's more likely that they'll want to take you in. I would also suggest participating in other talks whenever there's like a visiting professor. I guess now would be like a Zoom meeting, but participating in those so you can hear what other people are doing, not just the research you might be doing or might be interested in, but seeing what's out there, because you might hear something that's really cool that'll really get you motivated and say, that's what I want to do. And so that's kind of what I ended up doing.
Thank you. Victor or Isaac?
So yeah, I think research is definitely important, because if you're thinking of going to graduate school, you're probably going to be doing research. So I was involved in research starting off at community college, just because I started community college thinking that I want to go to med school. But then I, heard about this opportunity to be able to do research over the summer at Cal State Fullerton. And I was like, okay, I'm going to explore different avenues that I can take, to get an idea of what I would like to do. So I got involved with that, and that's how I ended up getting more involved with research. And another thing that I think is really important is that there's actually programs specifically made or that are at Cal State Fullerton to help you understand and learn about the graduate school process, such as McNair. I'm actually a McNair alumnus, so I can tell you that there's a lot of great benefits, but that's not the only program that's out there. There's also MARC, LSAMP, and all these programs are specifically there to help you understand what you need to do to be a better candidate, how to start preparing for this future career that you would like to have in graduate school.
Thank you. Isaac, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I'm just going to echo, I think, a lot of the things that other people have said. Research was a big part of my involvement at CSUF. particularly with a faculty member in the geology department, was one of the big reasons why I ended up going to grad school, and I'll probably talk about that, seeing some of the questions that are coming up later. But Victor also mentioned something I think that was extremely important, is that there are a lot of programs that help you sort of filter and sort of give you a lot of good information for planning applying to grad school or sort of figuring out what you want to do after your bachelor's. And for me, it was LSAMP. LSAMP provided a lot of feedback in terms of when I was writing my graduate school applications. They helped look at my statements. They also helped me sort of figure out the schedule of when things are happening, because as many of you will note, when you are applying to grad school, there's a lot of deadlines. And LSAMP, and at the time STEM Squared, which was another program that was for sort of peer mentorship and development, was really good at sort of providing this kind of information that can be very, very easy to sort of get mixed up in your mind. Another thing was sort of, at least for me in my department, if you were a student in the department, you automatically just kind of became a part of the club. And for me, it was a geology club. And that helped me by also letting me know about other opportunities that were out there, even if they were just volunteerships, outreach opportunities, stuff like that. It was all very helpful when I was at CSUF.
Thanks, Isaac. And so if you want to elaborate maybe a little bit more, I know you mentioned particular faculty mentors, right? So did you have a particular faculty advisor or mentor at Cal State Fullerton? And if so, how did you find them? And what was their impact on your academic career? I don't know if Isaac, you want to start this off since you started talking about that.
Yeah, so particularly for me, it was a professor by the name of James Parham. I call him Jim. He and I met each other when I was an undergrad, and I was taking a Geology 101 course. At the time, I actually wasn't a science student or a part of any sort of science or engineering department at CSUF. I actually started at CSUF as a part of the English department. I wanted to become a teacher. But it was through this Geology 101 course that I became interested in geology, and particularly for me, most of my research actually deals with ancient life. I'm a paleontologist, and Jim was a paleontologist, or is a paleontologist, and through this course, he just started talking about California's local paleontology, and it just got me really excited about things that I didn't even know were in my own backyard. And throughout my academic career, he's pretty much been someone who I can consistently rely upon. Although I graduated in 2017, all throughout my time at the University of Florida, where I did my master's, I would consistently talk to him and just be like, hey, you know, I'm thinking of making this move, or I'm thinking of applying to grad school for a PhD. What do you think? If I had a personal statement, or even just like, I was taking a class and I had to write a paper. I was like, hey, you know, if you have time, you know, could you look at this? If you don't, it's fine. I consider him a close personal friend of mine, and I know that that may not always be the case with every advisor you have, but for me, Jim is very much a part of sort of, you know, my entire academic journey.
Thanks. Anyone else want to share?
I'll go ahead and share. Sorry, I beat you to it. So my advisors and mentors that I've had, I have two specific ones, Dr. Sam Becerra and Dr. Allison Marzaki. They're both in the math department. They're both amazing humans. For Becerra, he ended up becoming my mentor advisor. I had a class with him. I really enjoy his teaching style. He's wild. He's absolutely wild. And I emailed him after I was done with that class. I spent a lot of time in office hours talking to him. I emailed him and I was like, hey, I want to do research. I don't know how that works. Help. And after that, he's like, okay, just come in and talk with me. And I ended up working with him and another professor for a total of a year, like over a year now. And we ended up having a publication from that, which is great. And so that's how I found Becerra, just asking. And then for Marizaki, I was actually an Elevar Scholar, which is a program for master's students at Cal State Fullerton. And you're required to have a mentor for that program. And if you don't have a specific one, they assign you one. And so I was assigned Marizaki. She's wonderful. She helped me with my applications a lot, sending emails to professors and stuff like that. She would look over my emails. She read over my statement and gave me notes and everything. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
So when I was at Cal State Fullerton, I looked into different professors that I would potentially want to do research with. And then at the end of one of the seminars that the chemistry department had every Thursday, I actually went up to one of the professors and just told her, like, I looked into your research. I thought it was really interesting. Do you have space in your lab? Are you taking anyone? She told me no at the time. And then the very next day, I got an email from her saying, why don't you swing by my office? We can have a talk. And then so we met, got to talking, and then she accepted me into her lab right then.
That's awesome. I'm hearing a lot about, finding people or like, going kind of out of the way and just saying like, I don't know how to start this, but can you help me? And then, either follow up later or even in that moment, they're able to. Victor, do you have somebody that you want to talk about?
Yeah, actually, so I've had quite a few mentors, people that have helped me through my journey, just because, being first generation, I just didn't really know where to go, what to do. So I reached out to a lot of people. My research advisor, Dr. DeLiger, I met him through the summer research program while at Cal State Fullerton. And when I transferred from community college to Cal State Fullerton, I looked into other labs, but his really stood out during the time that I was there. So that's how he became my research advisor. I asked him if I could join his lab. We talked. So through that, I was able to have him as, one of my mentors to kind of show me, what research is about and sort of that process. But another very important mentor that I've had is Dr. Fry Pettit and Dr. Pettit, which are both faculty in the chemistry department. And they became my mentors because I took classes with them. And I spent a lot of time in their office hours talking to them, not only about what we were studying, but also about, like, I'm interested in going to grad school. What does that look like? What was your journey? So it was, I think we have a great chemistry department. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. There's a lot of great people there. So, don't be afraid to talk to your professors during office hours, even if it's not related to the class subject. Ask them, how did you end up in Cal State Fullerton teaching math, or how did you end up teaching biology, that sort of thing. And who knows, you might find a lifelong mentor such as I did. So highly recommend it.
Thank you. And then now deciding on grad school, right? So a lot of you went through this decision-making process even more recently, right? And we want to know, so like, when did you know you wanted to go to grad school? So let's just start there. So when did you all know? Ernest, do you want to start?
Yeah. So when it came to my master's, it was at a point where I had originally wanted to go into optometry. I then started doing internships in an optometry office and realized it wasn't necessarily for me. So I wanted to find an alternate career path, but I had no idea what to do. So I actually talked to a professor at UC Riverside after I graduated, and he recommended that I just continue with my education and go into a master's program. Basically said, I came in with no research experience. So he said, you could try it out. It's 2 years. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, well, then it was just 2 years. You got to at least experience it. And so that's how I got into the master's program. And then during my master's, I realized I really enjoyed research. And so that's when I decided I was going to continue and apply for a PhD.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was a freshman, I walked on to Cal State Fullerton and I was like, I want to be a college professor. That's what I want to do. So from the jump, I was like, I'm going to grad school. However, I would say that was not always in my path. I would say definitely after I finished my undergrad, I was like, forget this. This was a mess. It was rough. And so I was like, I don't know if I could do a PhD after that. And so I took a year off, gathered myself, collected myself. And then I was like, you know what? Let me try a master's program. If I don't like it, cool, I have a master's degree and then I don't have to move on to the next level. But if I do like it, then I can go ahead and pursue the next level. And that's what I did. Yay.
That's a great point because I think you and Ernest have that similar. And I don't want to put you on the spot, Isaac, but I would say, maybe yours is a little bit similar too. If you want to share that, maybe going the master's then the PhD route, and then Victor, maybe you could share about just going straight to PhD.
Yeah. So for me, it was so going from undergrad to grad. So going from my bachelor's to my master's. It was sort of a process that was kind of like, I think some days I was like, it could be interesting, but I don't really know sort of if that's the way I want to go. But it really came down to having lots of discussions with my advisor at the time, who was encouraging me to go, but always was like, I think you should go because I think you're good at this, but it's your decision at the end of the day. So I always felt like no matter what, I was supported. Same came from my family. But I would say what ended up sort of having me sort of decide to go on to my master's was the fact that I enjoyed what I was doing. I enjoyed what I was doing, and I didn't really see for myself a reason to not take the next step, which is to continue doing what I was already doing. And so when I went to UF, that was very much, it was just like, I really like what I'm doing at this level. I want to see if the next level is something I'm interested in continuing, because the way I saw it was the master's would be the decision of whether or not I continued to a PhD or just left it here and then try to find something else in the industry. But obviously from my master's experience, it was something that I very much enjoyed and then have continued to do.
Thank you. And Victor, do you want to share about, maybe going straight in, or, when did you decide?
Yeah, so I thought I wanted to go to med school, and then I did that summer research while I was at community college, and that really changed my whole perspective just because I enjoyed doing that, the research work. But when I really knew that, I wanted to go into research was when I was at Cal State Fullerton actually doing research, being in and out of lab and, tackling these problems. And I enjoyed it. And like many have said already, that's how they decided they wanted to do this. I decided to go straight into the PhD from, finishing my bachelor's because I had a lot of feedback from my research advisor and other professors. I didn't think, like at first I thought that you needed to get a master's, and then I learned that you didn't. But I always felt sort of like, oh, am I ready for a PhD? Should I do the master's first anyway? But when I talked to my professors, I knew that they would, tell it straight to me whether I should go into a master's to get a little bit more preparation beforehand, or if I was ready to do something like a PhD. And the feedback that I got is that, yeah, you should definitely do a PhD. And I trust them. I don't think they would lie to me, hopefully. So that's why I decided to go from, my bachelor's to a PhD.
Thank you. And I think this leads into, why did you decide to pursue graduate school? And then how did your undergraduate experience prepare you or motivate you? So maybe that could be some of the faculty members that you talked about, but were there any other, things or experiences that you had as an undergrad that prepared you for that process?
I can start off. So for my undergraduate experience, I had a rough undergrad experience. I was not happy at the end of my program in undergrad. And I think that's because, well, I know it's because it's a lot of things that I did. And so I think my undergrad experience prepared me for like my master's and my PhD experience, because I know what not to do. A lot of the things that I used to do, I would not take breaks. I would like stress out and just work on something for like 4 hours straight. And it's just not good for you. You have to take breaks. You got to relax. And so once I started doing that in my master's, I was like, okay, everything's easy. You don't have to stress yourself out. It will be fine. And so that's how my undergrad experience, it taught me what not to do. And then deciding to go on to the next level of a PhD, in my master's program, I was like, okay, I'm actually doing the darn thing. Things are working out. And then I started doing research, and I actually started really enjoying research. Like, I would be excited to do it. And then, I don't know, you get kind of a rush when you have like good research and you get things published. And so I was like, okay, since I like this, let me talk to some people about maybe doing a PhD. And eventually I went along with it.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share, elaborate? Like either why did you decide or how did you decide? It's cool if not, we have more questions.
I would just say the biggest factor for me was just getting input from other people. So my undergrad didn't help me at all because I didn't do any research there. So I had no idea what I was getting into with my master's. But at Cal State Fullerton, I thought about doing a PhD, but I didn't really think I would be able to. I didn't know much about the PhD. No one in my family had gone that route, so I had no support there, no knowledge of it from there. And then my advisor, she basically asked me, "Are you considering a PhD?" And I'm like, "Maybe." She's all, "You should do it." And I was really hesitant to do it, but she's like, "You can do it." And so having that support is what really pushed me to apply.
Awesome, thank you. And I think we heard that from like others too, right? It's about having that person encourage you, right? Like telling you like, yeah, you can do this, right? Like hearing that from somebody else, I think is different, especially if you're questioning, you know, do I belong here? How does this feel? Or like, is this the path for me? You know, I'm the first one. So I think, yeah, I'm hearing from all of you that that was really important touch points.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of self-doubt throughout this whole journey. But you know, my advisors, my mentors, really encouraged me to continue, even when I didn't believe in myself or my abilities. Even you know, even enjoying the work, you know, there's still going to be a lot of doubt. But there's nothing like, you know, after failing for so long and finally getting some results, in research, I don't think there's any feeling like that. So you know, maybe that's why I decided to stay on with research. But as in regards to preparation as an undergraduate, I think it's really important for you to try and get experiences that can help you understand what, you know, whether you like research and what kind of research you like. Because you know, although we're saying research and it might seem like this, you know, just research is abstract thing, it's actually, you know, there's a lot of research out there, especially within, you know, STEM. So you know, there's a lot of things that I, you know, tried, I guess, because I did, you know, a research while community college. I did geology, oddly enough, and then I did chemistry, and then I did more chemistry, but I did a different type of chemistry through a summer research program at UCSD that I learned about through McNair. So, you know, I think those are the things that kind of helped me understand, you know, whether I want to do research and sort of like what route of research I wanted to go under. So I feel like I was pretty prepared and, you know, really motivated to just get started with my graduate program.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead to the next slide. So what are some of the challenges and or barriers, if any, that you faced when applying or attending graduate school, maybe like before if you haven't started or maybe while you're in grad school, and how did you overcome that? So I think we have a little slide here, like first generation college students. I know some of you mentioned being the first in your family, and you know, more and more students at the Cal State Fullerton being first generation. But did any of that impact you? Maybe applying or while you're there?
I would say that while I was applying, I had pretty much no idea what I was doing in the beginning. I just knew that I wanted to do it, and I didn't really know where to start. My family definitely didn't know where to start either. So I would say the biggest challenge was just getting the application process started. I just had all this information being thrown at me from all over the place, and I didn't really know how to put it all together in the beginning. So it took me a while to start to get something like somewhat coherent when I first started applying. And I didn't take advantage, I think, of the resources that were available. So highly recommend going to any resources you have to help you get that started. Because I tried doing it on my own, and that was a mistake.
This is a good plug for Shonda. Go see Shonda. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, so for me, similar to Ernest, a lot of it was like, as much as my family loved me and was trying to support me, there wasn't a lot of prior experience that they had. My sister had applied to technical schools before that, but as far as going the next step to either master's or PhD, they didn't really know how to guide me. And I think for me, it was programs that helped me out. So like LSAMP helped me out a lot, but it was also a lot of like peer-to-peer transfer of information. So I was fortunate that in my undergraduate lab, it wasn't just undergraduates, there were also graduate students in there who were getting their masters. So as far as like figuring out deadlines, that was kind of on me, and trying to figure out like how to sort of schedule that time management for myself. But in terms of actually going through the process and what they were looking for, I had a lot of peers who were helping me out and were telling me like, hey, you know, when you're writing your statement, make sure you highlight these kinds of things, because I went on this many interviews. I got this kind of feedback from other advisors or my advisor, Jim, at the time. So for me, one of the things that really helped me out was my peer-to-peer sort of transfer of information. So it was getting, you know, help from my advisor, help from the different programs, but also like communal help within the student body.
Yeah, so I also had a lot of help from a program and peers, but there were also people that I had made friends with. You know, Tatiana is actually a really important part of my application process, because I think one of the most difficult things that I had to do was sort of understand my own journey through higher education, and sort of how my identity really makes me a strong candidate for PhD programs. And I think if it wasn't for Tatiana and, you know, those brainstorming sessions and getting a lot of feedback from her, I think it would have been a little bit more difficult. Because, you know, as a first generation college student, it's sometimes, you know, like Ernest said, we don't know where to start because our families, you know, have never gone through this process before. So, you know, that's of little help. I mean, they can encourage us, right? And that helps. But at the same time, you know, we also have to submit applications. So, you know, just reach out to those resources that you have, whether they be at school or certain programs. And that way you can better prepare for a, you know, better application. And yes, visit Shonda.
Sam's also on here too, Victor, if you want to give him a shout out.
Shout out to Sam too.
Chanel, sorry about that.
So for me, I'm also a first generation college student, and I had no idea what I was doing as well. For me, I actually reached out to professors. So I just emailed professors, hey, I'm thinking of applying, like professors I haven't even met with before, never talked to, know nothing about. Hey, help me, please. How do I do this? How do I apply? Can you tell me your experiences in graduate school? And it's funny because they won't hold anything back. I had one professor tell me, yeah, I hated graduate school, worst experience of my life. I don't know how I became a college professor because I almost quit after that. So you get to hear both sides of the spectrum. But yeah, for me, reaching out to college professors was the best thing because they know what to do. And chances are they've helped other students as well. And so they basically gave me a guide for everything. Like, okay, you should do this at that time. You should apply to these schools. Here's some suggestions, maybe research some other ones. And I would just go to them and be like, what if I don't get in? Every other day. And then they would say, it's fine, you'll get in. And I did. So it's great. Reach out to your professors.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot about different communities, right? So we have like our faculty, professor communities, our staff, and other communities on campus, right? And we also have like our family, like even if they don't know what that process is like, right? They still have our backs and like are still always, on our side and encouraging us. And even if they're like, I don't know what a mission or purpose statement of purpose is, or versus a personal statement, right? Like but they could, at least give you that encouragement or even that like home cooked meal when you need it, or like, a place to like go and like a shoulder to cry on if, the application doesn't go through. They're still super important to that path for sure. And I think, it's a balance of both, right? It's like having both sides, like you said. For those of you, I think we talked about this already. the master's first versus pursuing the PhD. Is it cool if I skip this, or unless you want to add anything? Does anyone want to add? Are we good? No? Okay, I've seen shaking heads. Okay. And then again, for those who went straight for the PhD, Victor, basically. Do you want to add anything? Are you good?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So applying to grad school. So what are some resources, right, that we were talking about the application process and all of that, that helped you? So, I think some of you talked about your faculty, and then were there certain people, right? So advisors for center student clubs, what, do you have anything else you want to add that are resources that really helped you and helped guide you along the application process?
I guess I was trying to figure out what schools to apply to, and that's something that I talked to one of my professors about. Just because there were certain schools that I knew that I wanted to apply to. I did my summer research over at UCSD, so I said, oh, I like it there, so I'm gonna apply there. But when it came to like, oh, where's a good place where I can do my research? That's something that I talked to my professors about, because they're a little bit more familiar with the current situation in a lot of these schools. So that's something that they helped me kind of understand a little bit better, where they think that I could most excel for a graduate program that has resources, to support me.
Do you want to elaborate on that, or are you good?
What do you mean, like the kind of resources that schools have?
Or like some of the things that you're considering when applying that were really important to you?
Yeah, so one of the most important things is obviously the kind of research that you're going to be doing. So I looked a lot into that, whether the school was a good fit for the kind of research that I wanted to do. Another thing is what sort of professors are there. The diversity within the department, I think, was kind of important to me. I wasn't too surprised to see that chemistry departments aren't the most diverse places in academia. But it's something else that I looked at, and I think really my decision came down to applying to 10 schools. And a lot of it was heavily based on research interest, but there were all the other smaller but yet important aspects that I was looking into.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, so for me, like resources that helped when I was applying to grad school specifically, the most important ones were definitely like my advisor and some of my lab mates. One of the things that can be a little difficult when you're writing statements, especially like research statements, is often when you're applying to a grad program, at least for the fields and applications that I've had to do. You want to talk about how your research interests fit into either the lab or the institution. And that means that often you don't really have like a one statement fits all. So you have to make individual statements for each institution, for labs. And for me, like my advisor, Jim, was and still is like a major part of that. Usually when I'm writing up a statement or I'm applying for a grant, I will ask him, hey, can you look at this? But not just can you look at this, these are sort of the requirements that the application has. They're looking for this. Am I addressing the points that they want me to hit? Because sometimes when you're writing, you are so caught up in your own writing that it's kind of hard to step back and someone tells you like, oh, I don't think you actually touched this point. And you're like, what? No way, I thought I did. But it's good to have multiple people looking at what you're doing, especially when you're trying to maximize your chances of getting into grad school or successfully getting a grant. And for me, it was just having multiple people looking at it. So I really relied heavily upon my advisor and my peers. So often I would write a statement, get edits back, and it would just be a wall of red, but I would be like, okay, well, we got some work here. Let's continue trying to make this as strong as possible.
Thank you. Chanel? Sorry.
Yeah, so for me, I applied to 30 schools. I don't recommend. It was too many schools, but I didn't have to pay any application fees, and that's because I applied for the GEM Fellowship, GEM Fellowship. It's for people entering engineering PhDs. So if you're an underrepresented student entering an engineering PhD, if you just apply for the GEM fellowship, you won't have to pay for a good amount of applications. It's like specific schools, but it's a long list of schools. So by the way, yeah, so that helped with affording 30 applications. Again, don't recommend 30. But like I said before, faculty helped me out a lot. And with the process of applying, there's just so many steps. And if you have anybody else in your class who's also applying to a PhD, reach out to them, find them. It took me a while to find the people in my department applying because I was a master's student while a lot of the undergrads were applying, but try to find them. And then you can all cry together about taking the GRE and the math GRE, which is ridiculous, and just all of those things. And you can compare notes, which is important because you're like, did you hear back from this school? No, I didn't hear back from this school. So you're like, okay, maybe I still have a chance, that kind of thing. So yes.
Maybe not grad school cafe. I don't know. That's really stressful. Ernest, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, in terms of being able to pay for the applications, because some of the applications can be pretty expensive, if you start your application process early, you can apply for fee waivers as well. And so you could pretty much get all of your applications submitted for free, but a lot of those have an earlier deadline than the actual submission deadline. So definitely pay attention to that, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to. I applied to, I think, 9 or 10 schools. I wouldn't have been able to afford to apply to 9 or 10 schools if I didn't have that fee waiver. But during the actual process of applying, I wrote out my personal statement, wrote everything out, and I sent it to a few people, a couple of them faculty, a couple of them friends, just to get as many edits as I could on it. And then I used to have study sessions with a couple of friends who were also applying for grad school, and we'd sit for like a few hours at a time and just work on our applications together, kind of show each other what we have and make edits like in person. And that was really helpful.
It's like a study group for students that are applying. Y'all are going through it together.
It really
and then
helps.
you mentioned the GRE. So like, how did you prepare for the GRE? Other tests that you had to take to apply?
Yeah,
Chanel.
the GRE. Oh my goodness. Where do I start? All of you. It's an awful exam. It's awful. It sucks. The GRE and the subject GRE, if you have to take the subject GRE, God bless you. It sucks. So just be mentally prepared that it's going to be awful. Okay. For the subject GRE, I had to take the math GRE. And for that, it's like they took everything from your undergrad, all of those final exams, and they just picked off 60 problems. And then they give you not enough time to do all of them. So my suggestion, if you have to take the math subject, memorize formulas and just know everything. There's no way around it. Believe me, I tried. There's no way around it. You just have to know. And then for the regular GRE, just be mentally prepared to take a 4-hour exam. I got a Magoosh subscription, which is like an online test prep for GRE. I like that a lot because it tells you like how to take the tests, which unfortunately with a lot of, like the SAT and the ACT, it's not about taking the exam and knowing the material. It's about knowing how to take the exam. And so the Magoosh subscription told me like, okay, here's the format of the exam. It's this way every single time. For your essay, write it like this. For these types of problems, try to think about it like this. And so it gives you kind of like a guide of how to go through it. But 4 hours, that last section, I was like, okay, we're going to guess on some of these because I can't. It's over. But yeah, I did well, even though it was rough. But yeah.
It's like a shared experience taking that test.
Yes.
Anyone else?
I would say for pretty much most standardized tests, understanding the test format is possibly more important than knowing all the content. You could know all the content, but if you don't know what the exam is going to be like, you go in, you get thrown off or your timing is off. So I would just say do a lot of practice tests for the GRE, or whichever test you have to take. Do as many practice tests as you can just to get comfortable with it.
Yeah, so I'm going to echo the whole terribleness of standardized examinations. I am very against the GRE, and I think I got the sentiment from a GRE prep person that UCSD hired to help students prepare for the GRE. It was a great class. I wish I would have, taken their advice a little bit more seriously. Because the GRE it's a very interesting monster just because, it's the professor that taught that GRE course would say, it's just a game and you have to learn how to play their game. Because there's a lot of like little things that you can do to, sort of boost your score, how you do better in certain sections over others. And it's kind of interesting. But if you're, getting ready for the GRE, you should definitely, do a lot of practice tests. Specifically, the book that we use for that prep course was directly from ETS, because though that practice book has the actual questions from past GRE exams that they've given. So I mean, that's going to give you a pretty accurate idea of what kind of questions you're going to ask. But definitely, if you can find a group of friends, peers that can help, help you stay motivated through this grueling process, I would definitely do that.
Definitely. Isaac, do you want to add anything? Okay.
Not much, just echoing what everyone else is saying. I think Ernest probably, for me at least, definitely said the most important thing is the format is probably the thing you have to pay attention to the most, because if you're not mentally prepared to sit for that long staring at a computer, it's going to be we shouldn't have to, but we all got to go through it. And so it's just about being as prepared as you can be. I personally didn't really have the money to invest in any sort of GRE prep stuff. So I just relied upon a lot of stuff from my peers. So a couple of us were taking it at the same time, and I was basically just mooching off of them and being like, hey, when you're done with that book, can you pass it over? Pass it over to this side of the table. And that's how I got away with studying for it. But yeah.
Hey, there's no shame in that. You got to ask, for those materials and share them with each other, right? Like community share.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to other students on asking faculty for letters or recommendations? Because we know you all need them. Any advice on how to ask for them, going about asking for them, or anything like that?
I can say some stuff. I think that what's most important is I would say like two things. One is making sure that you know the faculty member who you're asking to give you a letter of recommendation. I think that's probably one of the most important things, because if they can't really speak to you as a student beyond just having taken a class, it can be difficult. It's not that it's impossible, but it can be difficult to write a strong letter of recommendation. Another thing I would say is try to provide whoever is writing your letter of recommendation as much information beforehand. So often, if they don't know you're applying for a program that specifically focuses on, like for me, like specifically focuses on 3D imaging of fossils, and they write you a letter of recommendation, but you've done some of that, but they don't mention any of that in there because they weren't aware that that was an important thing to mention, then it might still be a good letter of recommendation, but it might not have what sort of is needed to help really highlight how you best fit the lab or the institution at which you're at. So I would say making sure your faculty knows who you are and you have some sort of good working relationship. And two, providing as much information up forefront. This is what they're looking for. This is what I would like for you to highlight about me. Those kinds of conversations only help to strengthen your chances.
Definitely. Chanel?
Yeah. Also, one thing that I didn't know, so for the actual online applications that you do, I thought that you just had to do them when you're like ready to complete the entire thing, but you can start them earlier. And this is my issue because I'm like, I'm not done with my statement yet. You can't send your letters of rec because I haven't opened the application, whatever. Do the applications earlier, fill out all of that information earlier. You don't have to turn it in. If you don't want to, you don't have to turn it in at all. So you can leave it open. I did not know this. So I did like 30 applications like right before they were due. And imagine just filling out the same information over and over and over and over again. Do it earlier. Don't be me. Do it earlier so that your faculty can get in those letters of recommendation early. And also when asking for letters, because I have friends that are thinking of applying to PhD programs, but they're like, I don't have anyone to ask for a letter. So unfortunately, you have to work on that in advance, right? You can't just be like, it's a month before applications are due. How am I going to get a letter? That's not how it works. Like probably a year before, you want to reach out to people and start making those connections, just like Isaac said. Just talk to a professor, be like, hey, can I work on a project with you? Can I do some research with you? Maybe going to a club or an internship or something like that, where you can work with someone that can specifically see how you work and be able to talk about your work experience and who you are as a person. I think that's super duper important. Like being in a class with someone is cool, but I think you have to take it to that next level, especially for PhD programs.
Definitely. I'm hearing the difference between a strong letter or like a regular letter recommendation, right?
Yeah.
Anyone else want to add?
Yeah, those strong letters are going to make a much bigger impact when the reviewer is reading your application. So you definitely want to do as much as you can to, even if all three of your letters, if you need 3 letters, aren't quite as strong, if you have 1 or 2 really strong letters, that'll make a really good impact. I would also say that when you're emailing faculty asking for that letter recommendation, make that email a little more personal. Don't make it one that you're just copying and pasting to like 20 different faculty members and just hoping someone responds. If it's a little more personal, they're more likely to read it and respond to you. And then again, definitely do it quickly. You know, there's some faculty members who may not always check their email daily or don't respond daily. So if you're only giving them a few days to respond and they just see it like the day of the deadline, then you missed out on that.
Yeah, I asked some of my letter writers in person because I had visited them for office hours a lot. So really start making those connections with some of your professors that you have for classes. That way they start to get to know you a little bit more on a personal level, even if it is for a class. You know, like when I said that, you know, you can go to office hours and talk about, you know, the journey that these professors had to get to Cal State Fullerton. I think that really, it's really powerful because I think stories are really powerful. You know, my Dr. Fred Pettit, you know, she has an amazing story. And I think, you know, getting to know her on a more personal level about her journey through higher education, I think that also helped me, you know, feel more comfortable and understand that, you know, she could write a strong letter for me because I had her for multiple classes. And even before I even thought about, you know, asking her for, I already had started that relationship a long time before even thinking about, hey, I'm going to need somebody to write me a letter. You know, so visit your professors, try to get involved with research because research, letters of recommendation from, you know, professors who you've done research under are really powerful because they can speak directly about the sort of skills that you've developed and how you've grown from the beginning of research to however long you did research.
Thank you. And if you got into more than one program, because I know a lot of you applied to multiple, how did you decide on your specific program? And I know we might be running out of time. It's already 12 p.m. I'm sorry. Can we go over a little bit? Are we good?
Chanel.
Do you want to
So
talk
I did
about
get into
that?
multiple. If I applied to 30 and I only got into one, I don't know how I'd feel about that. But no, I got into I think 10 programs. And so choosing between those was an interesting experience. But luckily for me, there was one that stood out. So if you have the opportunity to go and visit a program, a lot of my programs, they had visit days, and then COVID hit. So online visit days, go to those if you can, go to them, please. And so for me, it was getting the vibe of the place. I think that's a very important thing for me. I'm young. I'm not married or anything like that. Some of the programs I went to, everybody was married, and they're I'm like, what do you guys do for fun? Hang out with my wife. And I'm like, okay, I don't know about that one. I need a cohort that we're all gonna have fun together. So yeah, through the visits, that was the real determining factor, because I feel on paper you see okay, there's this professor, that professor, they have this going for them, but if you go there and you don't like the vibe, it's not going to work. So the vibe of the place is important, and also you need to make sure if it's a program that provides funding, how much funding are they giving you? Is it a livable wage? That kind of idea. And then definitely, if you can, meet with the professors that you want to work with. Again, it's that vibe kind of thing. Make sure that it's someone that you can talk to, you feel comfortable with, because they always say it's like a marriage. Whoever your advisor is, you're married to them for the length of the program. So make sure that you actually like that person. They don't have to be your best friends, but make sure that it's comfortable.
That's a
I
good
would
point.
also
6 to 8 years, right? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I would also recommend, if you can, talk to people like graduate students in the research labs that you're wanting to look into, because you could talk to the advisor and feel really good about the advisor, but the graduate students are going to be a little more honest with the lab culture and everything. And so if you see them and they look pretty unhappy, and most of them look unhappy, that's a bit of a red flag for you. It's maybe that's not the environment you want to be in. A big deciding factor for not only the school, but the lab I joined was meeting one of the grad students and postdocs. And I got along really well with them. They were very honest about the lab. They told me that the PI was a little demanding, but nothing unreasonable. They enjoyed working for her. And I'm like, that sounds like a place for me.
Awesome.
And then they're pretty happy there.
Anyone
Yes.
else?
So actually, I think the visits are really important. Sadly, I don't know how, because of COVID, I feel like a lot of our experiences might not translate directly to what some of you might experience during this grad school application cycle. But I did have the opportunity to do an in-person visit versus a virtual visit. And you know, they're pretty different, but I think the thing that helped me decide to come to the University of Pittsburgh was my interaction with some of the grad students. I asked a lot of questions. So even if you can't, you know, even if it might not be an in-person visit, make sure that you talk to the grad students to see how, you know, they enjoy the program. You know, and as far as my experience, they're going to be as honest as they can be if their PI is not around. So, you know, even if in virtual visits, ask them all the questions, like, how do you like your lab? Have you heard, if you're interested in a particular lab, ask them, oh, have you heard anything about this lab? So you could get an idea of what the environment is like at that university, the research environment is like, professors, that sort of thing.
Awesome, thank you. Isaac, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so when I applied for my PhD, I got into 3 different programs. And again, this was all before COVID. But a big part of it was, you know, meeting the graduate students, getting to know the program, getting to know the faculty. I was fortunate enough that when it came down to my 3 choices, I had the choice of settling in New York City, Chicago, or Santa Cruz. And so one of the things that came into play was, you know, a PhD is often a long-term commitment. You know, you're going to be there minimum 5. A lot of people go, you know, 6 or 7, depending on the type of program you're going into. So it wasn't just a question of like, oh, you know, I like these people, or, you know, I like these faculty. That all was, I would say, extremely important. But for me, it was also like, am I going to be happy living here for that amount of time? When I went to Gainesville, Florida, or at the University of Florida, it was fun. But I think that for myself personally, I was okay doing 2 years there. If I had had an extended amount of time, it just would have been a different thought. I would have had to consider other things. You know, do I want to be, you know, here for that long in a small town? Some people can do it, some people can't. But for me, it ended up being a thing of like, you know, I really like cities like Chicago, cities like New York, and you know, I ended up choosing Chicago. But that played a big thing. It was, you know, it's often the way I had it explained to me was, and it actually really changed the way I thought about PhDs, was yes, you're still going to school, but you're not really going to school. It's a temporary job that's going to last anywhere between 5 to 7 years or something like that. So can you see yourself working? Can you see yourself existing in whatever place you're going to be for a long amount of time and kind of becoming a part of that community? And if you can, that's great. If you can't, you kind of have to make that decision and think about pluses and minuses. So.
Thank you. And those are like really important things to share. I know we're a little bit over. We wanted to hear a little bit about the grad school experience. I know we mentioned, how do you pay for grad school? Like, did you get financial aid or funding? And this probably played into your decision to go into school. But if you want to quickly maybe just share on, how this plays into that decision, whoever's wanting to share.
I can start. So I'm fortunate enough that my department actually has a certain amount of money to take in students, and they don't require any money out of pocket from the student. But that was a big thing going into grad school for me. I have minimal teaching requirements, so I haven't had to do too much teaching throughout my time here. Um, but it was a big deal because Chicago is an expensive city. So if I'm going to be living here, I need to make sure that my living wages are enough to satisfy not just, you know, surviving. I have to be actually able to make some sort of living wage. So that was something that was really important for me. And often programs will have some sort of money allotted. If they don't, it's important to think about grants. For a lot of us, the GRFP is kind of one of the most important applications you will ever submit because it basically gives you a full ride to wherever you want to go. And often other departments will supplement that. But yeah, financial aid, usually there's some sort of someone once told me that you should never have to pay for grad school, which kind of blew my mind. But finding ways to make it the most sort of so that you don't have to pay it is extremely important.
Definitely. Anyone else want to elaborate?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention, online, I think MIT provides a website where you can see what the livable wage is for a specific place. So when I got my like stipends from different places, I'm like, let me make sure, because I'm not trying to be out here struggling, okay? And so my program, I have 5 years guaranteed funding. I don't even have to teach or anything, which is great. I can just focus on my stuff. And so it's very important, just like Isaac said, don't pay for a PhD. It's typically not worth it. So make sure you have some type of funding lined up. And then also, like I said, with that GEM fellowship, I actually ended up getting that GEM fellowship. And so for that, I get an extra $16,000 for my first year. So I'll take that. Thank you. So it's a good idea to apply for fellowships. There's also the NSF grant. That one's more intense. But yeah, there's a bunch of fellowships out there. So try it out.
All the fellowships, all the grants.
Apply
Anyone
to
else?
everything.
Apply to everything.
Yeah, I don't think it's typical if you're going for a PhD in STEM that you'd have to pay for it, but you do have to look at the sort of funding that you're going to get, right? Because Chanel, you said you haven't had to teach. And then I actually have to teach the first year, but that's incorporated into the program that I'm a part of. But I'm actually in the process of applying to 2 fellowships. So, it's part of being a PhD, a graduate student, because later down the line, you're gonna have to be applying for grants if you decide to go into academia. So yeah, but apply to everything. Who knows, maybe you'll get something.
It's never ending.
If you're applying for master's programs, you will most likely need to pay for those out of pocket. I was fortunate enough that Cal State Fullerton offered me a TA position, so that paid for some of it. My advisor received additional funding, so she actually paid me through one of her grants. So most of my education for my master's was covered. So I had some financial aid, but I didn't have to rely heavily on it, which was really fortunate for me because I know it's not that way for everyone. And then going into my PhD at UCLA, they require you to TA for 1 year, but you're guaranteed 5 years of funding. So TA for 1 year to cover your tuition and everything, then your stipend. And then I received a NIH grant. So I'm covered for an additional 2 years from that. And then if I don't have additional funding outside of that, then I'll have to go back to TAing. But I'm interested in going into academia afterwards. So I actually wouldn't mind going back and TAing. Just gives me a little more time to focus on research for now.
For sure. Thank you. And I'm sorry for throwing acronyms at everyone. NIH, NSF, sorry. National Science Foundation. What are the other ones? I think we mentioned GEM and all the other ones. We'll put it in the chat. And then a couple more questions. So how has your experience been in graduate school? Is there anything wish you knew before attending for those of you that started or have experience in that?
I wish I would have
known
master's
how much, or PhD.
Yeah, I would say for both. I wish I would have known how much writing was involved. constantly applying for grants, writing proposals. Just last week, I had to submit a 14-page written proposal. And so I didn't think going into the sciences, there would be this much writing involved. And my writing, I would say, wasn't the strongest coming in. So that was something that I kind of wish I would have known and taken more seriously when I was in undergrad and even in my master's. It's gotten a lot better now, but it's just been through a ton of practice and a ton of writing.
Shout out to GEs. Take your GEs seriously. Anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, so for me, what I wish I would have known is that school is not the end all be all. You'll be fine regardless, okay? If you feel like you need to quit or something like that, talk to people first, but it's okay to quit. It's okay. Also, it's okay to take breaks. Your schooling and all that stuff shouldn't be your life. Make sure you have work balance in check, okay? Work and life balance in check.
Thank you.
I would say, I think I would echo what Chanel was saying. Yeah, just having a good work-life balance is extremely important. I think often, certainly I did when I first, before I ever started grad school, my idea was like, oh, you're going to be constantly in the books. You're always going to be going at 100%. There are times where that will be necessary. You know, you have to meet deadlines. You have classes and research kind of deadlines all piling up on top of each other. But it's important to realize that it's a marathon, and you have to, sometimes it's hard to enjoy hard work, but you have to be able to enjoy your life as you're going through this. And this is going to be it's going to take up a large part of your life, at most, I would say half a decade, depending on the route you take, or at least rather half a decade. So just make sure that you enjoy it. You know, hard work is hard work, but just make sure that you're having a good time as well. To the best of your ability, and taking care of yourself is extremely important, especially I think during times like this where, you know, I'm from Southern California, from Anaheim, not too far down from Cal State Fullerton. I grew up living down the street from Cal State Fullerton. Most of my family community and those I consider the closest to me are there. Having been so far away from them, it's difficult during these times. And then being here in Chicago, my community here is the student body. And although we're all kind of fragmented, we've been relying on each other, at least through talking, at least through like park meetups where we kind of like, it's 2 or 3 of us and we're just social distancing, all that kind of stuff. But you know, that all of these things are going to be extremely important throughout your academic career, because sometimes you'll find yourself on the other side of the country, and if you don't like where you are, if you don't like the people you're around, it can be very difficult. I've been fortunate that I've had sort of the journey I've had so far, and I've had a lot of good people around me. So
Thank you. Victor, do you want to add anything?
So I haven't started, so I'll let you know how that goes. But I think just in general, I think what's been said about work-life balance is super important. I think it's extremely important to start learning how to practice self-care, knowing what works for you. I know I'm pretty far away from any family. All my family's on the West Coast, and I'm over here in the East Coast. So you know, practicing self-care I think has been really important, even if I've only been here for a month. You know, because being really close to family, I've always been really close to my family. So you know, it's going to be a change, definitely a change, but it's not going to be forever. It's going to be for a little bit. So you know, definitely keep in mind that you know your emotional wellness, your mental health are super important, even if it's not just with going to graduate school. Even right now at CSUF, there's some great resources. You know, I've been to CAPS more than plenty of times, and you know, there shouldn't be any stigma. Sadly, sometimes there still is that stigma, but this is something that's going to be lifelong. If you decide to go to graduate school, you know, I've talked to a lot of graduate students, and they're still accessing, you know, those types of resources. So you know, start thinking about how you can be well, so then you could so that inner wellness can really you know, be seen, be expressed outwardly, something like that. So yeah.
Thank you. And I think you bring up a really good point. So CAPS is Counseling and Psychological Services that we have on campus. And it is a great resource, right, for all of us. And I think especially now, fighting for social justice, living in COVID, you guys are around the country right now. And I think, keeping that community going, right? And we're grateful for you all to share your experiences. Your stories are super important, especially to us and students at Cal State Fullerton, right? We're also proud of you. We all have your back. Just know, you will always have us here. I'm gonna cry. But
Stop
we're
that.
definitely going. We're gonna miss seeing everyone on campus, right? But we definitely are gonna miss, having you all. But that's why it's important to keep these conversations going, right? And sharing your story with our students and current students, right? So please, please, please don't forget about us. But share your story with others, right? And we're excited that we were able to have this space so you could do that. I wanted to check in on the chat. Shonda, did we get to a lot of the questions that students were asking? Are there any we want to highlight? And if I know it's 12:17 too, so Ernest, if you have to head out or anyone has to head out, please feel free.
Someone just put in a question now on teaching assistantships. What has been your experience for those of you who've been a TA, and especially with the transition to virtual teaching?
That's a good one.
Any of the panelists want to share about if they've been a TA already, how that has been?
Chanel?
Yeah, so I was a TA for 1 year in my master's program, and I was teaching this past semester, so we did have to do the transition from in-person to online. Be nice. That's all I have to say. Be nice to your students. Everybody's having a rough time with COVID and all of that. Be nice, be lenient, really be sympathetic to what they're going through. And chances are it's going to affect you too. I did not want to grade for a very long time while I was teaching online. And then you can basically be super flexible with the way you teach. So I teach mathematics. I did real-time instruction. So I was writing on my computer and they were looking at it. But you just have to figure out what works for you. Maybe try a couple different things. You can also do the thing where you make videos for them and then they can follow along with themselves if it's all online. And you just got to play around with it and see what works best. Maybe taking surveys of your students. That's a good idea to see if they like what you're doing online. But yeah, doing exams, especially for math, is rough. I still don't have the answer for that one, but yeah, I made them all take home exams. So yeah, you just got to figure out what works for you as an instructor and what works for them as students.
We're all learning together, that's for sure.
I don't have experience doing the online TAing, but I did TA for about 5 years in total so far. And I would say that transitioning from undergrad or straight into being a TA, there typically isn't a whole lot of training that goes on. So sometimes you may notice that your TA looks a little frantic or doesn't fully know what's going on. And I would say it's not their fault. It's because they just kind of get thrown into it sometimes. And if you're going into grad school, that will be you one day. But it definitely gets better. Once you get the experience, when you know what you're doing, you feel a lot more comfortable in that role. I would say every quarter when I TA, I'm still a little nervous in the beginning, even after 5 years of doing it, but it gets a lot better. So the transition might be a little rough in the beginning, definitely gets better.
Awesome, thank you. Any other
Yeah.
questions, Shonda? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm definitely nervous. Yeah, we have like one training next week. No, we have a training like a week before classes actually start, so that's going to be an interesting experience.
We'll be
It
thinking
can't
about you,
prepare you. It can't, whatever training they have, it can't prepare you. You just got to struggle. It's okay.
Oh.
Just dust your shoulders off after the class and keep it moving.
I'm just glad I have people rooting for me here. I think there was a question about GPAs, and I think
If anyone wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, I kind of just wanted to just mention a little bit about that. Most programs have a GPA minimum, But obviously, everybody applying to the programs, going to try and have more than the minimum. So I don't think you should be discouraged if you're, getting closer to the minimum. I think there's opportunities in the application process where you can definitely talk about your life experiences and, maybe explain a little bit of why your GPA might be closer to the minimum. Because, college is difficult, especially being a first generation college student. Some of us had to commute, work, still have to do our school responsibilities. Maybe we had family responsibilities. So, just because your GPA now might be a 3.9999 doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. As long as you're, above the minimum, I think you still have a chance.
And there are some kind of questions going in right now. So like talking to a graduate advisor, if it feels intimidating, do you have any tips for how to talk to an advisor?
Email. For me, I get nervous about those types of things. I always send an email with everything that I need from them or want from them. I like to send an email, and then they're normally nice to me in the email back. And then from there, I'm like, okay, I can talk with you in person now. I have to send an email first. Walking into somebody's office is scary.
Yeah, and I think we have to keep that in mind too, right? And now it's Zoom. So
and also one more thing on the GPA. If you have a lower GPA than the requirements, you can always take classes either at like a community college if it's like a lower class that you've taken before, or you can do Open University through Cal State Fullerton or a bunch of different universities, and you can take those classes that you might have done bad in the first time, or new classes if you're trying to get into like a different field, and that can raise your GPA.
that's a good point. Thank you. And are there any other questions? And I think there's one about chemistry in there.
Yeah, I think I was having a private conversation. I think that student wants to teach at the high school level or then community college. So I just said, yeah, you could have a master's degree. They don't require a certain one for teaching at that level.
Yeah, I was actually just typing something on that too.
Oh, good.
I think that's a great question to ask your academic advisor. Shonda has great information too. But yeah, you can talk to Shonda, talk to your academic advisor about that. Because I know that I've had a few peers that wanted to go into teaching, and they got information about whether they should do what degree they should do to do that from the academic advisors.
And someone mentioned, I had a question on like how, like what resource to find like research outside of CSUF. And I guess Victor, because I know you mentioned you found your research through McNair. So did they tell you which program, they suggested what program, or did they just suggest you should do this research, do a summer research?
Yeah, so they actually told me about that program because they already had previous students apply and attend that program. So my challenge, so because I'm a DACA student, a lot of these big programs are funded by the federal government, so the funding is specific to citizens and residents. So what I had to do is just kind of Google, look around, ask professors about summer research opportunities. I was able to find, like, there was a professor at some university, I don't remember where it was, that actually made like a website to that caters specifically to undocumented, documented students, and it kind of just had a list of programs that we would be able to apply to. So ask your professors, because a lot of your professors probably know where there's research programs happening. I think NSF also has like an REU search engine thing going on. I mean, I didn't look on it because I don't qualify for NSF funded programs. Also, if you're interested in a particular university, a lot of universities have programs for the summer. So like I know that UCI and a few other UCs have SURF, summer undergraduate research fellowships, and they'll just go onto their websites, look it up. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of searching on your part, but there's definitely a lot of different places So I know that there's a Big 10 application for summer research programs. So that one kind of encompasses a lot of different schools out in the Midwest. So yeah. And you
Yeah,
can always,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, I think a big takeaway from all of you too. Yeah, like for all of you, like I think in the chat too, if you have questions for people, a lot of people, yeah, ask professors, I think as a big one, because our professors are the experts in their field. And so I think I hear from a lot of the panelists, like they know the great grad programs. They'll know a lot about summer research programs at other schools that they would recommend. So they would be like probably a great first place to ask, and then, you know, starting to do research and asking on the websites and stuff like that.
Also ask some of your peers. Maybe somebody's done research somewhere. So yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us. I think those were a lot of the questions that we got to, and for going over. I apologize. But we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. And it's great to see all of you, even if it is on Zoom in this virtual space. And thank you for those of the students that came in, and faculty and staff, and everyone that's joining us today. We're all rooting for you, and you know, we're still here. So Cal State Fullerton's still your home. Even if you're a double, triple alum, I'm really excited for the future, especially for those of you starting out this fall. I know it's a different space, right? It's virtual. It's going to be totally unique, right? But you know, if you all need anything, we're always here as, you know, your student success team, and your home, right? And we have everyone say thank you. So thank you for joining us. If you want to share your contact, if you feel comfortable sharing your contact with the students, we can send that out, or if you want to put it in the chat too, or, you know, just in case people have questions later, or you could just email me and Shonda and let us know. I think that about wraps it up. Shonda, do you have anything else that you want to share?
Oh yeah, thank you. And then yeah, just after this recording, we'll send a copy of the presentation with the email that you provided when you registered. And then we're going to put it on our website. I know there was a question in the chat about where we're putting it on our website. I'm not sure exactly yet, yeah, where we're posting. I don't want to give a website yet because I'm not exactly sure where that will be. So I'm sure when we do upload all like our workshops we've done this summer, we'll send an email out to where they'll end up being on our website.
Awesome. And thank you again to the panelists. Yay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for being here. And you're all Titans, so you can do it.
Definitely. All right. Well, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. There we go. Can we take a picture? Sorry, yeah. I'm all about pictures.
Oh, with everybody?
To my good side.
Whoever's still on here, let's take a picture. Sam, do you want to unmute your face?
Yeah, where is Sam?
He's
here.
Oh, there he is. He doesn't want to unmute. All right, he's coughing. All right, so I'm going to screenshot. All right, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, thank you. It's great to see all of you.
Great to see y'all.
Nice to meet you. Okay.
Thanks for letting me.
All right, I'll talk to you all later.
Yeah.
Bye.
I don't know if I'm the host or you're the host. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I'll probably end it on here. Yeah.
All right, bye. Good seeing you.
Bye everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.